Hi everyone, today I'm going to take you through how to add, remove and update contacts in your Expo React Native app. The first command on line 4 shows you how to actually create the app, and you'll want to do the install line on line 5 as well. You can just type those into your terminal and it will set up your app in the same way I've got it set up at the moment. Once you've done that, you're going to head on over to your app JSON file. You're going to add the Android permissions required. So you're going to want the ones for reading contacts and writing contacts. And you're also going to want to add your Android package. You're also going to want to add your iOS bundle identifier. Because we're going to be working with expo-contacts, which is a config plugin, we're going to need to add this to the plugin section. And there's also the line that'll be in the info plist and be presented to the user when they open the app on iOS. So now we've got our configuration done, we can create our standalone builds. So we're going to go EAS build configure, and that's going to create a configuration file for us. That'll be put in this EAS JSON file. I'm going to head on over there, and in the development build section, I'm going to add iOS simulator true because I want to be able to install this app on the iOS simulator so that you can see it easily on screen. If you're installing this on a real device, you wouldn't need this line. This step also means you don't actually need like an Apple ID, so that's kind of handy. Like a development license for Apple. Then I'm going to go run the build command for the iOS platform, and I'm going to specify that I want to build it for the profile development. Because I haven't installed Expo Dev Client, it's going to go ahead and install that for me when I say yes. I'm going to need that to run my standalone app later on. So it's gone ahead and it's created a build. It's going to build it, and while that's building, I'll also kick off the Android one. Though I'm only on the free tier of Expo, so it's going to be a little bit slow, and it will just need to queue these builds up. So it's just good to get them going both at the same time. Now I'll go ahead and wait. And now I'm back because the builds have completed and I can download them. So I'm downloading the iOS simulator build and also the Android build. You can install it using that QR code or just download the build if you want the APK file. So I'm dragging on my app that's for iOS, and then I can run using the npx expo start command and --dev client. I'll hit I for iOS and it'll prompt me to open that app. I can say open, and it'll run it as a standalone app. I've got no code there, so there's nothing there for it to prompt me with regards to the contacts yet, but let's go ahead and add that in. I'm going to start with a state variable, contacts, and also the setter for that. I'm going to use that use state hook, and I'm going to just specify a default value of an empty array. So if there are no contacts, it's just not going to show anything. I'm going to use a safe area view because I want it to be within the bounds of the iPhone area. And I'm going to go ahead and add some list in here as well so that I can display my list of contacts. I'll just be using React Native's inbuilt flat list. It's going to use contacts to determine what data to display. Sometimes there might be no list items, so currently the default is no list items. In that case, I can choose to display something else, and in this case, I'm going to just display a text component that says no contacts. I'm also going to set this property render item. Basically, this will be responsible for rendering the contact as a line in the list. Just going to put a placeholder in here for now. Which will just be the JSON string of the contact. Cool, you can see there's no contacts, so it's displaying no contacts as expected. If I'm wanting to show contacts, obviously I'll need to load contacts. Also just making sure that list takes up the remainder of that space on the page. Cool, so now we're going to go ahead and load our contacts. So we're going to use useEffect hook. That basically means when the page loads, it's going to go ahead and run this code inside the useEffect first parameter once. I'm going to create this little function search contacts that I'm going to call from my useEffect function. And then I'm going to go ahead and fill out that search contacts. The reason I'm creating a separate function is I can reuse it in a few different situations later. I might want to have a search box to search through the contacts. And I also might use it when I'm reloading things as well. While the UI is loading, I'm actually going to want to have is loading set to true. And I can actually have that set at the beginning of search contacts as well if I was doing it via a search box as well. If it is loading, I want to display some text that says that it's loading. Otherwise, I'll go ahead and show the flat list. Cool, so you can see it says loading now, and it's never being set to false, so you can see that it will just say loading indefinitely. So now we need to go ahead and load our contacts, and then we can follow up by setting is loading to false. We can provide some config when we're loading our contacts. So one of the configs we can provide is how we want to sort our contacts. So the different types of sorting are available in contacts.sort types, and I've chosen to sort by the first name. Next up, I'm going to go ahead and load my contacts. So I'm going to go contacts.get contacts async, and I'm going to pass in that config. In some cases that might not have any results, so I'm just going to have it return an empty array. I'm also going to need to update my function search contacts to asynchronous, and you saw I got prompted automatically on iOS to accept the permissions. I'm going to change this name just so it's different from the state variable. Then I can go ahead and set contacts to be those loaded contacts. And I want to set it to be the data from the loaded contacts. And I'm also going to want to set is loading to false. And you can see that the data now displays on screen. Now, like I said earlier, you might want to be able to search your contacts. So I'm going to go ahead and add a search option right now. By default, I'm going to have my search set to empty. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just create a new view, which is going to contain my text input. This is where people are going to enter what they want to search, and also a button to actually trigger the search. On change of text, I'm going to call that setter for search, and the default value for the search is going to be driven off search. So when search gets set by on change text, it's going to trigger that re-render. I've got my button. I'm going to title this one search. And on press, I can call that search contacts. So this is where I'm talking about reuse of the function. I'm going to add a new style just because I feel like this would be better as a row. That's typically how you see like a search thing. You'll have a text input and a button alongside it in a row. So yeah, I'm going to go ahead and create this now. I also probably want a little bit of styling on my text input, so I'll create that as well. It's going to take up the remaining space available. And then I'm going to make my row style. Just change that flex direction to a row and it'll lay out in a row instead. I can choose how I want to align my items as well. Now I need to go ahead and assign those styles. So I'm adding a style to the text input for the new text input style. And I'm also going to add a style to the view. You can see it's laid out as a row now and looks a little bit more easy to use. You can sort of see the bounds of the text input. You can type along in there and click search. But you may have noticed that we didn't actually define our search anywhere, so we don't have any way of passing what we want to query the contacts on. So if search is not equal to an empty string, then I'm going to go ahead and set that config.name to be the search. So we're only going to search on the name, and now you can see it filters down to be based on like name. So when I typed MIS, it found MissCoding if I search something that doesn't exist, it doesn't find it. Now we're going to go ahead and add a new file. This is going to be our contact row because we're going to change the styling of the rows. At the moment it's kind of hard to read and you don't really know what you're looking at too much, but this will make it a lot clearer and easier to sort of see the changes that we're making and how it's going to impact the contacts. There are a few things I need to import here, so I'm just going to go ahead and import all those, and then I'll cut ahead to the end when those all are imported. Okay, so now we're back and we're defining the contact row. It's going to have a few different properties. It's going to have a contact, it's going to have a function for deleting contact, and it's also going to have a function for editing contacts. So we're just going to define some styles quickly here. One of these will be a style sheet for a style for row, because it is quite common to, if you've got a row, sort of display things in a row, such as like some actions alongside the information of the contact. Inside the contact row itself, I'm just going to return a view with the style row. I'm just going to start with just some data from the contact being visible inside there. The first name and last name are pretty common ones that would make sense to include. But you could include whatever you want. You can just access it from the contact. And if you're wanting to query specific data from the contact, you can actually do that as well using that getting contacts async function. You just need to tell it what you want to get. Now I'm going to go ahead and update my render item callback here. I'm going to go ahead and change it to displaying a contact row instead. And I can pass my contact in. Now you can see I've made a little bit of a typo here. Flex direction is row, but row needs to be a string. Cool, and now that's looking very good. You can see that I've got my first name and my last name for each of my contacts, and it's a lot easier to sort of differentiate the different rows. Now I'm just going to go ahead and add a new button. I want to be able to edit the contact. And on press, I'm going to call this edit contact function that was passed in via the property. It's going to take the contact's ID and go ahead and edit them, allow them to be edited. Going to do the same thing for delete as well. I haven't implemented those yet, but I'll go and implement those soon, and then I can pass them through in the app.js file. Additionally, I'm just going to create this little share contact button. It's pretty simple in that it will be able to just use the contacts, Expo contacts import to go ahead and share those contacts async. You just need to specify the contact ID. and any message you might want to share along with that. Cool. You can see that I've now got edit, delete, and share pops up this option to share the contact card. Heading on back over to my app.js, I'm going to want to implement my edit contact and also my delete contact, of course, and then I'll be able to pass those through and click on them in my contact row. So here I can pass them in as I've now created them. They don't do anything at the moment, but soon they will. Gonna specify that I'm going to get the ID as the parameter because I'll be passing that from my contact row. And I can just present the form async and make any changes that I want to make. I then search contacts just to make sure that that's reloaded in the front end. Delete is also fairly simple. I'm just going to go ahead and call contacts.remove contact async. And then I'm just going to go ahead and filter it out from the contacts. And then I can reset my contacts to a list that excludes the contact that I've deleted. So if I delete, you can see it's deleted. And if I were to refresh an app, you can see that it doesn't show back up, which means it actually has been deleted from the contacts, because when it's reloaded, it doesn't reload. Now I'm going to go ahead and create an add contact modal, because some people might want to add a contact in addition to removing, editing, or sharing a contact. I've got a few imports to make, so I'm just going to skip ahead to when those are imported. Now that I've got all my imports sorted, I'm going to go ahead and define my contact modal. It's going to have a few different properties passed to it. So one's going to be a closed modal function, one's going to be whether the modal is visible. I'm also going to have a save contact function. Just going to use React Native's modal and set the animation type to slide. And transparent false. Visibility is going to be driven off this modal visible property. If it changes in the app.js, it will trigger a re-render here. And if someone requests to close the modal, it's going to call the close modal function. I have a safe area view so that it's all keeps within the bounds of the iPhone. And I just created some styles and have saved, and we'll add those styles where I need them. So I'm going to add one to the safe area view. I'm going to add my cancel button. When a cancel is selected, then it's going to call that close modal function. So it'll close the modal. I'm going to head back over to my app.js. I'm going to go ahead and actually add my modal in now. Then I can test that it actually works with like open close. And from there I can add further functionality to it. So I'm going to want a state variable, add contact modal visible. It'll trigger whether the modal actually is showing or not. And I've also got the setter function that'll be used for sort of closing it or opening it. By default, it's going to be closed because by default, they're only going to want to see it when they actually go to make a addition of a contact. So that modal visible property is going to link up to that add contact modal visible state variable, and that close modal function is just going to be setting that add contact modal visible to be false. That's all we'll need for now. We're also going to need another button. That button is going to be for adding the contact. So I'm going to add a button with the title add contact. And on press, it's going to set that add contact modal visible to true. When I save, you can see that add contact shows up and opens the modal with that cancel button. Clicking cancel closes the modal as expected. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a save contact function. It's going to go ahead and take a contact in, and it's going to save them. So it's going to add the contact and then do a search so that the new contact's loaded. And I can pass that function to the add contact modal because that's where it's going to be called from. I'm going to add a couple of text inputs here. These are the values that I want to be able to set. The ones that you add might be different depending on what you're wanting to include. It's up to you. So I'm just going to go ahead and add a couple, and I'll skip ahead to when that's completed, as it's a bit duplicated effort. So I've added all the state variables and setters we need. Now I'm going to add all the text inputs, and I'll meet you back once I've added those. So now we have first name, last name, company, phone number, and we also have email. Adding contacts shows those. They don't look very pretty. You can restyle if you want. I'm also going to set that keyboard type for the phone number to be numeric so that only numbers can be entered. I'm also going to go ahead and add my button, which is going to go ahead and save the contact. This is not going to be as simple as the straight call to the save contact. We're going to actually have to build our contact up first into the form that contacts will expect, and then we can go ahead and save it that way. There are a few different default, contacts has the field names in there so that you can provide the first name, last name and all that as constants. And this will help you build up your actual contact. So I'm adding my first name, last name, company. I can add my phone number and email as well. Emails is actually an array, so I'm going to have to actually make that one array. And I'm also going to need to specify whether it's my primary email as well. Since it's the only email I'm providing, I can set that to true. And if you want, you can provide a label as well. Finally, I'm adding my phone number, once again an array. There's the digits, which is obviously just numbers. The number, I'm just providing the phone number again. As primary, well, it's my only number, so I'm going to go with true. And you can give it any label you want as well. So maybe it's like my work number. But I'm just going to give it the phone number label. And that should show up actually inside that contact UI, and I'll show you it a bit later. So once I've built up my contact, I can go ahead and save the contact using the property save contact and just passing the contact, and then I can close my modal as well. So go ahead and enter. Cool, you can see my test person shows up. I can edit them, and you can see they've got the labels phone number and email there. Those would change if I had changed those labels. But you can also see I forgot to clear those out, so I'm also going to want to clear all those out. I also don't have any validation going on here. If you're actually building this out for yourself, you'd probably want some form of validation. Cool, by adding that, it should just clear all those fields. I'm going to go ahead and create a function for that though, because it'll look a bit tidier. And I'll call that field, that function instead. Cool. I'll also want to do it when I'm cancelling. So yeah, once again, I've put in a separate function, it can be reused. Means if you change things in the future, you don't need to keep updating them in multiple places, which is always a win. So if I click cancel and go add contact, you can now see those are cleared. And that's because I've added that clear fields function. Now adding another test contact. You could actually leave some of this black because, like I said, I haven't actually added any validation here. But in yours you should. And look, it looks great. I go add and they're all cleared. Now I go to my contacts to look, and you can see they've got my different contacts that I've added. Now we're going to head on over to Android and make sure that's all working as expected. There are some slight differences between Android and iOS that I'll point out as we go. Just going to skip ahead until this is loaded. So you can see that we've got it loading, but it's sort of failing to load. And we've got a rejection because we're missing the Android permission read contacts. So how are we going to go about resolving this? We'll head on over to the app.js file. And here in use effect, we're going to go and request the access to the permissions. This is an asynchronous function, so we're going to go ahead and add this as its own function that we can then call within use effect. So it's only going to get called once when the app loads. So we're going to go ahead and call contacts.requestPermissionsAsync. We're going to need to make this get permission function async as well. And we'll check for that status being permission granted effectively. So we're only going to want to search for the contacts if the permission is granted. We're going to go ahead and call that get permission. And you can see that it's prompting us to access the contacts, and I can allow it. And you see no contacts because I have no contacts. Going ahead and adding a contact now to add it to my Android phone. You can see that's working. I can click on edit. I'll open the contact inside the Contacts app with all the fields that I've submitted. I can delete, and you can see that I've got no more contacts once again. And reloading shows that there are no contacts. And finally, I'm going to show you sharing. So share will just allow you some of the default share options for contacts on an Android phone. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial today. If you have, please like and subscribe for more content.